still think the cost is not the big issue, actually, because
Right.
at the moment with what's going on, they're spending God knows what on getting the UK economy back up and running. This is the time to sort of put costs like this. It's very small compared to that. To say, if they put a message out to the UK public, we need to spend $2 billion to guarantee the UK's national security,
When
which
you
is the
consider
message
the
here.
wedge they've been
They
chucking
could
about
easily get
recently.
with it. The bigger issue is this disruption, I think. If it's true that trying to do this in a really quick period of time and trying to get rid of it before 2023, which is the current time frame for going down to the 35% cap, is going to lead to, if mobile phone services go down for a couple of days, that doesn't sound so bad, but that's disastrous for a lot of businesses.
Hello and welcome to another Telecoms.com podcast. As promised, we've come into the office for the first time in 3 months. But of course, it's very important that we don't give each other the plague. So we're all wearing these masks, and we're definitely going to keep them on for the whole pod, aren't we? Nah, fuck off. It's a thought that counts, though, isn't it? But we have also produced...
Jamie,
Jamie's kept it on.
is keeping it
Jamie,
on.
you look like something out of a horror film with that thing on. And
we're socially distancing, so that's
we're
fine.
socially distancing. And producer Pierre has looked after the talent because he knows that's the smart move. So thanks for this, producer Pierre.
Unlike on Top Gear.
What?
Unlike on Top Gear.
They don't look after the talent.
Well, isn't that why?
Oh yeah, Jeremy Clark. I'd have to go and lamp him if you hadn't brought this in.
Isn't that what you said or
launched
something? You're not looking
myself
after
at
the talent. It even came out with
probably
that comment or something.
pathetically prima donna-ish like that. So anyway, good to see you guys.
Yep.
Blimey,
Cheers.
has it really been 3 months? Do you know what? Cheers. Oh, you've
Probably
got a weird,
shouldn't be. That's not really
take the
socially
whole top
distancing,
off
is it?
can.
Yeah, I got a
it's
different
nice.
one from
I
you
had that
guys.
the other day. It's actually
360
quite pleasant.
can, yeah, it's really nice.
It's called a
It's
360 can. 360 24/7 can.
Yeah.
Last time we did one of these live was Ray's last one. Mm-hmm. Hello, Ray. If you ever listen to these, I bet he doesn't.
No.
But
He's got his own coffee shop thing going on now.
Is he doing a pod thing on Telecom TV?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, well then I can't talk because I haven't exactly been following his progress either.
13th of March.
But we have had one or two of those Zoom calls that everyone has. We had it with a priority with a CC group, and so we've caught up with Ray on that. Anyway, I digress. So it's good to be back, isn't it, guys?
Yeah.
Office is dead. We've got the door open. There's just no background noise.
London is dead.
London's dead. Yeah, but we have found one pub that was open.
That was dead.
You two had a few sharpeners.
Has to be done.
So I expect you to be getting up to get the bog a few times. So I better crack on, hadn't I? What are we going to chat about? So I think there is the inevitable Huawei theme, but I think I found a way of not having to write Huawei on the file or on the little captions. We're going to talk about swapping out because that was a major theme. It's obviously because of Huawei that people are thinking about swapping out their telecoms gear, but we'll talk about swapping out.
Sounds like a rap song.
Jamie just
swapping
dicked
out.
about with that camera, by the way, Pierre.
Yeah, no, he
That's
didn't.
the one that's pointing
Okay.
at me, so it doesn't matter.
You've been missing doing that, haven't you, Jamie?
Well, I mean, you can't really mess around with Pierre when you. Aside
quite.
from occasionally, I put like my nickname in Zencaster as something that's offensive.
Or you-
towards
you-
Occasionally,
Pierre.
every time.
Sometimes you get up and wander around or put your camera down facing the table.
I like it when we're doing those remote calls, and Jamie gets up and doesn't mute, and he's just sorting stuff out or dealing with his dog or something, and you hear all this Davis household background noise going on. Anyway, we've all been learning. I mean, actually, I think back to that first one. One thing I've learned, it's a complete tangent, but what the hell, about doing those things remotely is that you just have to stage manage the whole thing a little bit more and sort of invite people in. So it'd be interesting. Maybe I'll be sort of still bringing that into this, and you'll just have to tell me to shut up because now I can see when you guys want to talk.
Because you've adapted, you mean?
Yeah,
You've evolved into
I've evolved. I'm a more
stage
complete
manager.
human being as a result of the lockdown. So yes, that's that. The second thing we're going to chat about is
Open
Open
RAN.
RAN. Open RAN, thank you, Ian. We've got a couple of Open RAN developments and sort of general mega themes going on there. And then the last thing we're going to chat about is SoftBank, specifically its desire to be more of a sort of massive venture capitalist than an operator group and how that's playing out for it. Cool. And then just to remind you that if you're watching it on the site or on YouTube or on Facebook, you can listen to it on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, and loads of other podcasting platforms. I kind of regret doing the face mask thing because now I've got to wear this
Why don't you take it off?
kind of
Take it
lame
off and chuck it on the floor.
because I've put a proper knot round the back.
Do you want me to have a look at it?
No, it's
sort
fine,
it
it's
out.
fine. Don't worry. This is
It's not really social distancing if I come around the back of you and untie it, is
People
it?
are going to
But-
think I'm having a midlife crisis. Jamie already does anyway.
Double denim. It was fucking tragic.
When was that?
Turned up at the pub wearing double denim
Jeans on, and a denim jacket.
Ooh,
you know,
yeah.
trendy sunglasses.
Canadian tuxedo.
I think I'm
Yeah.
Susie Quattro.
Nah, it was quite tragic.
I mean, that's thing around your neck with the shirt. It goes really well together, actually.
There we go. Yeah, at least I picked a black one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the Huawei-ness and the swapping out. I'm going to hand the ball to you first, Ian, on this, just because you're someone I know has looked into the whole swapping out stuff. That's not to say Jamie is not anything other than totally expert on the subject, but I've got to pick someone. The reason I'm handing the ball to you, and we will ask Jamie immediately after because he listened on the call and reported on it, is Vodafone and BT are basically going, don't make us drop Huawei because it's going to cost us, and the whole country's going to have no mobile phones, and we're going to be going back to the Stone Ages.
Yeah, so they appeared in front of two senior executives from both companies appeared this week at a parliamentary committee. Was it
Science and Technology
Committee?
Yeah.
Howard Watson, who's the CTIO, I think, of BT, and Andrea Dona, who's head of networks for Vodafone UK. Basically being quizzed because the UK's got this decision to make about what to do about Huawei, and they were being grilled essentially by politicians trying to find out what kind of impact that would have and how difficult it is. And we've had estimates over the last couple of years about how bad a ban would be for those firms.
Yeah.
And they basically this week, my takeaway was that they made it out to be even worse than they had in the past, essentially.
Right.
Especially
they've upped the
Vodafone.
stakes.
Yeah, Vodafone in particular, I think last year was sort of warning that swap out's going to be hundreds of millions and delay the rollout of 5G. And Andrea Dona painted a really kind of bleak picture. He was saying, cost of billions to take it out. And
So is it plausible that they've suddenly realised it costs loads more?
well, it raises questions why it costs more. But I mean, there's no doubt about it that it's not an easy thing to do in a hurry. Yeah, it's not something that, and I think this is what they're pushing for now. That there's been a bit of a change of tone where originally they were fighting against a ban. I think they're increasingly starting to recognise that a ban's going to happen.
Probably going to be one,
and they're sort of arguing for this to be done over a certain length of time to be able to manage it. And the big thing they both came out with, actually sort of agreed on this, was because their cost estimates were very, very different, which raises some questions. But they were both saying we need about 5 years to do it, otherwise we'll encounter all sorts of problems. So if you try and do it in a shorter period of time than that, what it means is having to, if you've got overlapping cells, you can sort of shut down one cell and change things there and keep the other one going, and you don't really kind of lose connectivity. But if you have to do it in a hurry, then you'd have to kind of basically shut several cells down at the same time, and it risks having things like blackouts.
So the blackout stuff is a viable.
Well, that's
concern.
what they're saying. They're saying that you could end up with, in certain areas, that consumers are losing mobile phone service for a couple of days. Even both of the executives said that.
I think that's very viable, because if you look at the biggest complication, taking equipment out and replacing equipment, is actually having people on the ground. They've only got so many field engineers. So if you're going to do it efficiently, you have to do block by block by block. And what's more efficient than have it taken down 3 or 4 cell sites within a mile radius? There's no other option.
Yeah, they both said they have to hire people to basically cope with the challenge of doing it in a short period of time. This is the argument now seems to have gone from don't ban Huawei to, if you're going to ban Huawei, then, which I think increasingly there's a feeling that that's what's going to happen in the UK. Whether we agree with that or not, it looks like what's coming. And they seem to have accepted that and are now saying, look, if you're going to do it, then at least give us the time we need to get rid of it, because if you don't, then we've got huge disruption. It's not just about slowing down 5G rollout, which is what they were saying before. It's about even basic 2G services, because they've used single RAN equipment from Huawei. It's like a platform that supports 2G, 3G and 4G services in some cases. They have to swap that out, that you're losing all sorts of connectivity, basic connectivity. So
yeah, which seems to make sense, but that presumably has always been the case.
Yeah.
So I guess the reason we're having this chat now is they're reading the writing on the wall and thinking it's not an if but when.
Yeah.
Type of thing. Is that how you see it, James?
I mean, my takeaway from the entire hearing was that the decision had already been made, and especially on the line of questioning that the politicians were taking, that the decision has already been made to phase out Huawei equipment, and it was just looking at the best way to do it and the way that's going to cause the least amount of disruption. So obviously Vodafone and BT are resistant to this because they're the ones that are the greatest level of exposure to Huawei equipment. And I kind of understand where the Vodafone guy is coming from, Andrea Donna, and Howard Watson. And I think an interesting point that Watson made that I forgot to bring up with you earlier was that this might bring down the cost estimate of BT, is that they said they were going to have to replace a lot of 4G equipment anyway.
Yes.
So they weren't actually factoring into the expense. So that could shave off a couple of $100 million, in all fairness.
Yeah.
So they're already replacing that. So they factored into that.
Well, this is the interesting thing, I think, because there's a big disparity in Vodafone's billions and Howard Watson, who was saying, at the moment they have to comply with this 35% cap on Huawei equipment in the RAN, and BT is currently at about 65%. So going from 2/3 down to 1/3 they've estimated will cost them about 500 million. Now, if you're a layperson, you might think, well, then going down to zero is going to cost you $1 billion.
Yeah.
And Howard Watson was saying, no, it won't. It'll cost up to 100 million, basically. So the full cost being 600 million. Because a lot of that 4G equipment we've got to take out anyway. The incremental cost is...
So I think that what they're being forced to do on top
of what they'd have to do anyway, is, and this is a point
the
that
difference.
I don't like keep bringing up John Strand, who's someone that is often in touch with us, but I think one of the arguments he's always come out with is that the full cost is something you'd face anyway, and then you have an incremental cost to deal with the Huawei swapper. But some of this equipment needs replacing in any case. So I'm wondering if like Andrea Donna's estimate of billions, and then he was pressed on this a lot. By billions, do you mean 10 billion or do you mean 1 billion? And he was like low single digits. So let's assume it's at least 2 billion. That's a lot more for an operator that's using 35% of Huawei's equipment in its RAN, compared with BT at 65%, to be saying the cost is 2 billion.
65%.
BT 65%, and they're saying the full cost of getting rid of that 600 million. Vodafone's 35% or 33%, or 30 something, low 30. They're saying the full cost 2 billion at least.
I think
now I wonder if he's putting the full cost in rather than the incremental cost.
I think there's two things to take into account there. First of all, I reckon from a Vodafone perspective, he is taking into account like we wouldn't have to replace that in that period anyway. So we're going to call this the lump cost.
The lump cost, yeah.
The lump cost of absolutely everything. And from a BT perspective, I reckon he's saying, right, 600 million doesn't include the stuff that we would have had to replace anyway. So we're not going to include that in that cost anyway. And when you look at the way BT share price has been going over the last couple of months, it's been basically hitting the floor and fucking hoovering up gravel. They need to do everything possible to make this number as small as possible, so investors don't get scared even more.
I mean, that's a good point, but isn't the flip side? And one thing I took from it is, go on, Pierre, he's on to his second. What a lad.
Do you know what they say about the French? It's not true.
You can drink.
This is my second, but isn't this your fourth?
In a minute, he's going to have an absinthe
Something
on
like
the sly.
Or a cognac.
Yeah. I thought part of it, now I wasn't there listening in like you guys were, but I thought my interpretation is part of this is sort of hat out for public money.
I'm sure there is an element of that.
And so that's the flip side to what you say, Jamie, about BT wanting to minimise the impact so that its share price doesn't take a hit. On the flip side, maybe Vodafone's trying to maximise that so that it gets extra compensation from
But
the
what you
taxpayer.
have to consider, every time that a government handout is offered, it's only equal to the amount or less than equal that the government that the company puts in. So when you look at government, like the shared network, rural network, for instance, it's not a government-funded initiative. The government funding only meets, at the very most, the amount that private industry is going to put in. So the more that it costs BT to gut out their network, the more that it's going to cost the government to gut out their network.
Yeah, I still think the cost is not the big issue, actually, because
Right.
at the moment with what's going on, they're spending God knows what on getting the UK economy back up and running. This is the time to sort of put costs like this. It's very small compared to that. To say, if they put a message out to the UK public, we need to spend $2 billion to guarantee the UK's national security,
When
which
you
is the
consider
message
the
here.
wedge they've been chucking
They could
about
easily get with
recently.
it. The bigger issue is this disruption, I think. If it's true that trying to do this in a really quick period of time and trying to get rid of it before 2023, which is the current time frame for going down to the 35% cap, is going to lead to, if mobile phone services go down for a couple of days, that doesn't sound so bad, but that's disastrous for a lot of businesses. For people that are used to using the phones all the time. It would have a big. It's like with those days when you get winter disruption and everything. No one can get anywhere, and then you look at the ONS has had to adjust its figures for the economy for that quarter because there's been some snow. It will be like that, but much.
Yeah, you
much,
can't be
much
having
worse.
mobile network down for prolonged.
So
periods at all.
I think that's the bigger issue is the disruption rather than
and this is,
the delay to 5G.
and 2 to 3 days is a fair assumption, and I think that's a reasonable, maybe even optimistic assumption for a cell tower being down. I mean, let's not forget, this is something that Howard Watson pointed out on the call. If you go to central London, most of the cell towers are on top of high-rise buildings to maximise coverage. So all of a sudden, you've got to shut down a street, which is fine in the time of COVID.
Oh, now's the time to do it.
Have you got to shut down the street?
Well, that's what he was
Yeah,
saying.
because
You have to get
the
cranes in and
equipment
get people up there
you can't
to
just
take
go
it
up the
out.
stairs.
No. These
Well,
are
got big equipment to take
Oh,
to
okay.
come
Some-
down
some
there
of
to
the-
take it
these-
out. They
they're
have to raise
really
cranes, like
heavy.
building cranes, construction equipment
Okay.
stuff.
they've got to get the equipment
Yeah.
down and also get the equipment back up.
Yeah.
So that's assuming
Yeah.
that
All right,
the,
fair
the
enough.
It's not
local
like sending
council-
Jeff Capes up there to
We
lift
know
it down.
we know how cranes are dangerous in London now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can't.
I don't know what you're
referring
referencing to there.
Oh, a crane collapsed yesterday and
Oh,
killed
right,
one
okay.
person. Yeah.
I think
But,
that's-
well,
I think that's-
if you're worried about that sort of thing, now's the time to do it because there's no one around, as we just
true, yeah.
found out.
I think the guy who died was the operator, probably.
But the thing,
Right, that's not good.
Sorry.
okay.
I think that's in pretty poor taste, Pierre. If I'm honest.
Keep it light, Pierre. But that is the thing. Like you can't. Like the biggest. We've said this for years and years and years. The biggest restriction to actually deploying a network is dealing with the local authorities, dealing with planning permission, dealing with regulation. So how is it going to be when you're taking down cell towers all over the city? Because as BT pointed out on the call yesterday, a lot of the antenna that it has bought off Huawei are for the urbanised areas.
Yep.
So it's not like you can just drive out to a field in the middle of nowhere and just do whatever you
All
want
you've got
for
to do is get a
couple
couple
of days.
of cows out of the way.
Yeah, you've got to deal with one of London, which is one of the most urbanised and
Fair enough.
population
So there's-
concentrated
there were some
places in
interesting
the
things.
world.
There were some interesting things that came out of it in terms of the data points. I thought that whole session because it had never really been confirmed that they were 2/3 Huawei and 1/3
Yes,
Nokia,
yes.
which was confirmed, and also the
Okay.
fact that basically BT's entire 5G rollout so far,
Is
it seems, is
Huawei.
basically Huawei. They've not really used Nokia at all, from what Howard Watson was saying,
So
because it's
Howard-
all basically been urban focused. And Nokia, so BT's network is essentially 2/3 Huawei,
Yeah.
1/3 Nokia. The 1/3 that's Nokia is
Countryside.
Is countryside
Yeah.
essentially. They do 3G in cities.
But what are they
Nokia, but-
doing, given this 35% thing? What are they doing going 2/3 Huawei? I mean, that's a bit stupid, isn't it?
That's
No,
what
no,
they've
no,
had. That's
no,
their
no, that's their
historical
4G
position.
network.
Okay, so
That's
this
their
is
historical
just
4G
not
position.
swapping out.
That's,
Right, okay.
no,
so
but that is swapping out because this is the point that if they get rid of the 5G network, they have to get rid of the 4G network as well.
So you're saying this is a legacy.
It's a legacy
sort of
issue, but
2/3.
the position at the moment of both companies is almost inverse. So Vodafone's 1/3 Nokia and 2/3 Ericsson. and BT is
Sorry, 1/3 Nokia, 2/3 Ericsson.
Vodafone
is 1/3 Huawei.
Is 1/3 Huawei,
2/3
2/3 Ericsson.
Yeah.
And BT is 2/3 Huawei and 1/3 Nokia. So one's heavily reliant on the Chinese vendor, and one's much less.
But Vodafone's doing more of the moaning and coming up with the bigger sums.
Vodafone is coming up with the bigger sums, and as Jamie was just saying, it sounds like maybe they're including. You get onto this incremental cost issue, but that's the important thing, really, is what's the extra fee that you'd have to spend for a Huawei swap out versus what you'd have to spend to just update equipment anyway.
I wonder whether a lot of the reason that Vodafone equipment is more expensive to strip out than BT equipment, I wonder whether it's because a lot of it is at the beginning of its life cycle anyway. So it is just massive lost.
There's no write down,
expenditure.
No depreciation.
Yeah, right. There's you can't say I've got X amount of ROI on this already, but if you've replaced something in the last 2 years and it's got a 10-year life cycle, you're effectively writing off 8 years of expenditure.
Yeah, that they've considered.
Could they sell that equipment somewhere else? Could they sell it to like Africa?
Down the market.
Yeah, well,
maybe.
they do that.
There is a resale market.
There is a resale market, and the resellers are doing quite well at the moment because people are looking for second-hand equipment. I even talked to one a few weeks ago, and they're like going great guns. So
in places where there's really low ARPU. So when you're looking at sort of like LATAM, Africa, certain sort of Asian economies and some Eastern European economies, there is a resale market there.
Yeah.
But it all depends on what the political regime is in those nations as well.
The other thing I would say, if I was being critical of the operators, they have done swaps before in Europe. Huawei came in, and one of the reasons it's got such a massive 4G share is because it came in and did a lot of swaps between 2010 and 2020. Not just in the UK, but like throughout Europe to get its position. So they have done big swaps before. It's not like it hasn't happened. And if you look at Ericsson now, which is quite aggressive, we talked about this, the whole kind of margin pressure they're facing because they're so desperate to build market share, they're prepared to do things for, that are a lot less profitable than they would have done previously. They're coming in and doing what Huawei used to do. They're saying, well, we'll come in, we'll swap out all your 4G equipment, and we'll build you a 5G network as well, and we'll do it for this fee, and it's really favourable. So these UK companies might now's the time to get good deals with that particular equipment provider.
It's a different type of business model, though, isn't it? I mean, this is what Huawei relies on. It's we'll sell you equipment cheap, but we'll realise the profits on the long tail.
Yeah.
Ericsson and Nokia have traditionally, offered high value products at the beginning, high revenue products at the beginning, but then that's where they realise the profits. Whereas Huawei, I think it's a bit more of a mature business model. It has said, we'll offer you at, say, let's cost price, but then we realise the benefits from like managed services.
It's interesting you say that. I don't know if this is one of the things. I know you told me that you were writing about Samsung, but I read something when I was looking for stuff to write about Samsung's been going, there's no way Huawei can. Yeah. There's no way a publicly traded company could have Huawei's business model.
Yeah.
This sort of.
Well, that was the Samsung executive on this parliamentary session.
Oh, was it part of that same?
Yeah,
shizzle?
I mean that it brought out a huge amount. There's several stories in it actually, and one was the Samsung guy sitting there, and one thing he did say was he got quizzed about unfair pricing because this issue about consolidation in the market came up, that we've gone from 10 vendors a few years ago, to all of a sudden to 3 or 4. And do you think that unfair pricing competition has had a part to play in this? And he was pretty outright, actually. I mean, he didn't go to the extent of saying, I think Huawei has basically had, unfair support from the Chinese government, and therefore it's been able to price things at this level and build market share.
Although we do know that
but he did say they've been, extremely aggressive in bids, and the stuff we've seen from them, we don't think any. We make 500 million objects a year, and we know what the raw materials costs are. We know what the basic electronic costs are, and we couldn't possibly price at that level and keep our shareholders happy.
Yeah, so I'm not convinced by that argument though, because if that argument was godsend, the telcos would never. There would be no business value for them selling devices. they sell devices at cost price because they know that there's recurring revenue built off the back of it.
Well, if we assume it's even cost, I mean, the inference from Samsung's, without
It's below
saying
cost.
it, is that they're actually making a loss.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely convinced by this Samsung argument. I wasn't. As soon as he started turning around saying, you don't have to worry about backwards compatibility, you can just overlay networks, I was like, right, okay, all of a sudden you're just ignoring the objections and the needs and wants of your customers. I'm not entirely convinced by it whatsoever. He turned around and says, we don't do 2G and 3G. But we can be an alternative supplier, and both Vodafone and BT turned around and went, no, we need 2G and 3G. We need our suppliers to be backwards compatible and to offer technologies in these generations.
So
and
don't get funny ideas, Samsung.
I think there's somewhat, this 4G, 5G overlay that you can just stick this network on top of 2G, 3G, and it doesn't have to interact, might work in some markets, but that's
and
not.
then you've got the greenfield ones like.
Well, I think it works in markets where you've had. So there's two. I think there's two issues. One is that a lot of the European operators, like the UK ones, have used single RAN equipment from Huawei. So basically, Huawei provides everything from 2G up to 4G.
Yeah.
Now they're rolling out 5G. So it's not just about swapping out. It turns out it's not just about swapping out your 4G. You're going to have to replace the 2G and 3G with that as well, because that's on the same platform. But the other issue is this overlay system. Coming in and providing a 5G overlay that sort of interworks with 4G is something that a lot of the operators have said isn't practical, because you lose the kind of benefits of 4G. Then you almost have to have a separate. You have to have. What they want to do is combine essentially the capabilities of 4G and 5G to provide a really good experience to customers. If you can't do that, and you're just providing a sort of standalone 5G network on its own right, you basically need loads of spectrum to make it. To make it a really good offer. Otherwise, it's not viable.
I'm not entirely convinced that the UK government fully understands what the situation is for the UK telcos. Otherwise, why would you have invited Samsung in to say, are you a viable alternative? If they understood the different business models.
Well, I'm sure they don't understand.
They don't understand it. And this is why Samsung is not a viable alternative, because UK customers, the four MNOs are saying, well, the two of the major MNOs are turning around saying this vendor relationship doesn't work.
But it was interesting to hear that point made, though,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of people have been thinking up to now, why isn't Samsung a viable alternative?
Yeah.
And the fact that they've not invested, to have that said quite bluntly by Howard Watson, I think that look, we need
both of them said
both of them
said it,
that we want single RAN products,
because both of them said 50% of our voice is
on 2G.
going over 2G.
Yeah.
So Samsung isn't an option.
Yeah. I don't remember it being stated that that overtly before, really, by the operators, that's the reason why a company like Samsung hasn't been able to come in. Now, I think in time that they've got a good, and in some markets maybe that aren't the UK, that are other European markets where the situation's different, they've got a good position to come in and do something. And, as people are looking for diversity and options to kind of bring those players in, they will be able to get some share. But as a mainstream option, it sounds like they're not going to get a deal with BT and Vodafone, basically, from what those guys were saying.
They're not.
It's almost like ruling them out. What they said on this week.
I mean, realistically, you're only looking at Nokia and Ericsson.
And Howard Watson said that, didn't he? He said our two options now are, which again would not been stated that. That sort of clearly before, were that we're looking at either going to all Nokia, which I'm very surprised if they do. Because that's definitely not an option. They're not going to go to 100% Nokia network, especially not now with all the issues that Nokia's got, and everybody's a bit suspicious of their 5G capabilities anyway. Or we bring in Ericsson. I mean, what's going to happen with BT is big boost for Ericsson.
Yeah.
Ericsson's going to come in and be BT's RAM, especially having already come in as the core network provider, and they've now got a relationship with them. This is my prediction. Ericsson will be a massive provider to BT.
Yeah. And also in Vodafone as well.
And in Vodafone.
So I reckon the operators must be shitting themselves a little bit about virtual monopolies for Ericsson.
Yeah, well,
and that's not to say anything bad about Ericsson in and
But
of
it's
itself, but a monopoly is always bad for things like price value for money.
Yeah,
and
that's the issue, that you lose Huawei, you lose price-based competition, you go down to a sort of, less choice. It's not that they would ever be using several, because at this point was made, isn't it, that you only rely on 2 vendors anyway. So why are you going on about diversity? And I think
you've always got the choice.
You want the choice.
Keep them honest.
You want the options there, the selection that keeps the prices down.
Adam Smith
and then
stuff.
you pick 1 or 2. So they're
Maybe
still
Nokia
going to have
will get-
1 or 2, but
Maybe Nokia will get 6G, right? And then
There we go.
I think Nokia will come back. I mean, I think they've had mistakes, and then they're not going to go away. But
Can I say one thing? How much better is the conversation when we're all in the room together?
Yeah.
I do need to go to the toilet though at some point.
Go
Go now.
Go for it now. We've got a natural pause.
All right.
While I'm talking about how great it is to be in the room together. I suppose if we were doing it remotely, Ian, you could just slink off, and we'd just have to wonder what the hell's going on. One thing, actually, Ian mentioned John Strand earlier, and hello, John, if you ever listen. He made a point about, and I think it's fair to say that John is not sympathetic to the Huawei cause.
No, he's entrenched in the anti-China
he's not a fan.
Huawei
He's not a fan. But it doesn't mean he's wrong. But I acknowledge that's his perspective. But he made a point about Vodafone and BT bitching and moaning about how much it's going to cost and all this downtime. He's going, but there's loads of other people, and I don't know if he's right or not, and I don't know if you know either. But there's loads of other operators that don't seem to have that problem. So why have they suddenly got a big problem? And I'm just like, well,
like who though?
I don't know. Maybe
no one else. No other.
Actually, there's the Deutsche. This is a slight tangent, but there's the Deutsche Telekom thing, which you can also talk about because you wrote.
Yeah,
about it.
but they're not being forced to take anything out of the network at the moment.
But maybe they will. Let's just recap on that. Remind us of that story you wrote.
But so they've tried to distance themselves from Huawei.
So getting a lot of heat in Germany, aren't they? Or at least a little bit of heat in the media.
about how much exposure there is to Huawei. So they have been sort of like gradually easing the relationship with Huawei. But this is over a time. It's a strategic decision over, and it's a proactive decision over a certain period of time.
Right.
This is the difference
more
between
control.
Exactly. They've got control of their own fate. Like the UK telcos have been basically painted into a corner and said, do what regulation says, irrelevant to the commercial damage to the business.
Trump says.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I'm not entirely convinced by his arguments because there's no one else in the world that is facing the same commercial pressures. And yes, people have phased out vendors before, but they phased out vendors on their own timescales and on their own operational decisions, which is the big thing that BT and Vodafone have come back with this week. They say if you aggressively force us to take
then that
Huawei out,
ramps up the implications across the board.
We can't choose how we manage it operationally because we'll just have to take it all out en masse.
Seems to make sense. Ian, I'm gonna get you up to speed on what we're chatting about. Presumably you're feeling nice.
I'm going to go for
now.
a pee as well.
So Jamie's off now. I called it, didn't I?
You can tell it's the first day back in the studio.
Yeah, you can tell it's You guys don't normally have 3 pints before we do.
I don't think it doesn't matter. Yeah, 3 pints.
It's like an afternoon off, really.
Yeah.
I got one.
So I can get back in.
Right, God, we're so amateurish, aren't we, Pierre? We were just talking, and then I'm going to move it on because we've done this for over half an hour. I'm mentioning old Strandy.
Yeah.
And he's been talking about how, BT and Vodafone are moaning about what a hassle it's all going to be, but there's loads of other operators for whom it doesn't seem to be a hassle. And I don't know, I know that John knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But I also know that he's, he's quite hostile to
I mean, I it's hard to know. I know I'm sympathetic, and I wrote a piece today actually that sort of was saying lots of questions were raised really about this because. My point was that a year ago, Vodafone was saying hundreds of millions. Now it's saying billions. I mean, if you say hundreds of millions, that tends to imply less than a billion, doesn't it? 900 million.
Otherwise.
and then billions implies at least 2 billion. So it's quite a big difference. And as we were saying, that there's a big.
I think we've had the chat about what
cost.
makes something plural.
Yeah,
Could it be a billion point one?
But then there's a
Is that
difference between the
billions?
networks, themselves that vote that Vodafone's got Huawei at 6,000 sites, BT's got Huawei at 12,000 sites. And yet Vodafone's
costing
saying
3 times
now
as much.
whatever way you look at this, whether it's depreciation and amortization because they've only just installed equipment, whether it's that they're including it's a massive difference. You know, they're talking about a huge difference for a network that's a lot smaller.
I'd like to see a breakdown of numbers.
Yeah, so I think questions are raised by that, and I think the other issue is that are they exaggerating the case when they're talking about needing 5 years? I mean, I think Howard Watson's thing that ideally we need 7 years, I think is
a negotiating position, maybe.
Well, I think that's a little bit ridiculous personally, because 7 years is. I mean, 2012, 2013 was when the first 4G networks were launched in the UK.
7 years, we're normally at 6G by that
7 years is almost the life cycle of. By 2027, people will be talking about 6G and preparing to launch it, unless there's been some big upset about 6G.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
However, and I mean, one thing I would say about John Strand's point about it's been done in other countries and so on and so forth is that. You look back at the 2010 to 2020 era with Huawei coming in and replacing European vendors with single RAN 4G stuff. And, that did happen. I mean, what's happening now with 5G, with it maybe swinging back a little bit the other way, is quite limited, and the markets where it's happening tend to be quite small. So I think Norway, both the operators there, Telia and Telenor, have said that they're moving to Ericsson from Huawei and that they're going to have all Ericsson kit by 2023. But that's a very different market from the UK.
That's also...
It's small, it's not densely populated.
It's also a proactive decision, so they can manage the phase-out over their terms, not terms being enforced on them.
Yeah. Yeah, they've decided to do that. And similarly in Canada, I think, where we're not entirely sure what's happening, but it seems like operators are moving away from Huawei towards other vendors. But as far as I'm aware, there's not actually been a government, you have to do this. And no one said you have to have them out within this amount of time. They've just said, we're going to use these operators, these vendors to
There's a rumour that Italy and Tim are doing that.
There is. And also in Germany, I think like Huawei's on, I mean, like talking to the guys there as well, they're not, it's not a good moment for them. And I think they know that.
Yeah.
And their view is that a lot of this is driven by politics. Which it is. It's driven by politics.
I don't think anyone denies
I think
that.
no one's going to deny that. So
cool. All right. Look, we better move it on, or we're not going to talk about anything else. So Open RAN, which is again something we talk about a fair bit, but the reason we talk about these things a fair bit is because they're the mega trends that we reckon are sort of defining the industry. There's no point in us talking about 3G or something, is there? Well, there've been a couple of Open RAN things. I'll ask you again, Ian, just kick it off. Remind us what the Open RAN news this week's been.
There's two of the big vendors basically have announced products that are O-RAN compliant. So they're supposedly compatible with these specifications that the O-RAN Alliance, which is kind of this association that's sprung up in the last couple of years.
Is that now the default one? Because there have been a few little...
Well, there's the Telecom Infra
bodies.
Project, and there was always a bit of confusion about whether the Telecom Infra Project was setting specifications that were conflicting with what the O-RAN Alliance was doing. But they're not really. The tip is more about implementation and actual testing and trialing kit.
Not setting standards.
And not setting standards so much. And the other thing is that those two, the really important thing is to clear up any confusion that did still remain, is that those two organisations announced a kind of agreement earlier in the year that they would use O-RAN Alliance specifications and that TIP would sort of take charge of this.
So we can accept O-RAN Alliance.
O-RAN Alliance specifications are the ones
authority.
And basically, Nokia 2 weeks ago had come out with this Cloud RAN announcement that it had cloud virtualized RAN equipment, a latest sort of upgrade of its products. You could virtualize them, you could run them on general purpose equipment. There was baseband stuff.
It was sounding all keen on that.
But they didn't really
thing.
highlight the O-RAN thing. It was quite a kind of buried. I think a lot of people did lead on the O-RAN stuff. That was the thing that stuck out for a lot of journalists. But they've kind of come out this week with a more, a more sort of out there statement about we're kind of O-RAN compliant, and the interfaces that we're not going to be able to support this year we're going to switch to next year. So by I don't know what the date was, but by some point in 2021, all of our stuff, we will have a product line that's all O-RAN compliant.
So leaving aside the specifics of the technology, the symbolism of it to me is that they're publicly signalling that they're not resisting.
Yeah,
they're
publicly
at least not resisting.
and they've always been the ones that have been least resistant to it anyway.
Right.
I think they've been involved in the specs group from an early stage, and they've, as the smallest out of the three big equipment vendors in the RAN space, they've always sort of, I think, seen as
they've got the most to gain.
They've got the most to gain. They're the challenger role, so they have an opportunity to be disruptive. The other one that's come along, and it's not a surprise because they were called out even by Vodafone last year at the TIP Summit in Amsterdam as a kind of company that looked really exciting in the O-RAN space, is Samsung, who we've just been talking about, that they've got. They also announced this week this sort of lineup of. I didn't report on it myself. Mike Dano did in the US, but they have this.
He's been busy, Mike, this week. I was checking out.
He's
your
always
site.
busy. He's always
a
busy.
beast.
Yeah, but they've got
no
this
life, has he?
Sorry, Mike.
Last time I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, he said he was desperate for the gym to open again so he could start going back. So God knows what he must be filling
he's
his
working
time
on some of that
stories.
gym tension just by tapping out telecom stories.
But he covered the Samsung announcement, which is very similar to Nokia's, that we've got a full sort of lineup of products that are now sort of. So I think it's a significant thing because they're. I mean, Nokia especially is an incumbent. Samsung is a challenger, but it's still up there in the top sort of 6-7 companies providing RAN equipment. They're not seen as the guys that actually, you've got the challenger, the real small challengers like Altia Star and, which are much more specific what they do. They're in one particular area, parallel wireless, Mavenir. So it's kind of an acknowledgement of the fact that this is going somewhere and that the operators want this, and therefore the big equipment vendors have to move and they have to acknowledge those demands. They have to go somewhere with it. So
the thing is, it means absolutely fuck all for the next.
Was that the first F-bomb of the live?
Yeah. It means
for the next couple of years. Yeah.
Well, no. Until so I didn't realise this. So if you go to the TIP website and the O-RAN website, they're doing plug tests.
Yeah.
And it should have been in March or April this year, and it got kicked back because of COVID, and now it's looking at the latter stages of the year. It absolutely means bugger all. It's all marketing talk nowadays until TIP and O-RAN certify them as interoperable. Now, later this year, what the Deutsche Telecoms lab in Berlin is going to be upgraded. So it's basically a TIP lab to test for interoperability between all of the Open RAN providers. And until you get into DT's lab and you can prove interoperability, you are not an Open RAN player. So everyone says they're Open RAN now, but until you get into DT's lab, you are not an Open RAN player.
And that's the issue, that the announcement that Nokia came out, this is, this goes in with this, that it's an Open RAN announcement, but all the products they've announced, they're all from Nokia. So anybody's obviously going to, if they've made a much more significant impact, perhaps, if they, what they're saying is, look, we'll sell our kit, and if you're not happy with a bit of it, you can take it out and put somebody else's stuff in, which you've not been able to do up till now.
So that's a difference. They're not necessarily Open RAN. It's not necessarily Open RAN hardware. They're promising that the platform and the interface is Open RAN, so that the sort of the software on top, you can take anything out below and you can plug in something new.
It's supposed to just be plug and play.
Yeah. So at the moment, it's just a baseless promise because it's not been validated by any O-RAN or TIP.
So do you think we're reaching a kind of bit of a marketing-y phase of all this? Like we're always.
I don't think so, actually. No, I think there's a marketing element, but also there's a lot of momentum behind it. There's a lot of companies asking for it, and it's got challenges.
What I mean by marketing-y phase is a degree of over-promising. A bit like we were slagging off the 5G marketing.
I personally think it's certification's one thing, but you do have companies rolling out Open RAN kit and using it in the field that hasn't been certified.
But it's not necessarily. No, it hasn't. Nothing has been certified.
No, it's not been certified, but it's been used. It's been done.
But it's not necessarily open, because until it's certified in the labs, you could put like parallel wireless kit in your equipment. In your network, and it is Open RAN. But because it hasn't been certified under ORAN specifications in this DT lab, you don't actually know 100% that you can take that out and put Altiostar in, for instance.
No, you don't.
There is a risk. There is a risk.
But Rakuten in Japan is using Nokia radio units that run Altiostar software. That's something that hasn't been done before. So that's what I mean is in terms of a commercial deployment.
But that's nothing more than at the moment a partner ecosystem which already exists in the single RAN world, if that makes sense, because that Altiostar works with Nokia.
Yeah.
But you don't know that Altiostar works with NEC.
You don't.
Or Nokia works with
but they've still
Parallel
had to
Wireless.
open up their own, their own radio units to another software company to allow
But the big risk is you don't actually know that it's all interchangeable.
That's true. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong, I'm massively on board with the Open RAN movement. I'm a big believer that in 3 to 5 years' time, this will be a genuine, viable alternative to the single RAN that's out there at the moment. But at the moment, it's just not market resilient enough.
Yeah,
you don't know. There's too many question marks.
Yeah. No, I there's marketing around it and there's hype around it, and there's all sorts of questions about the technology as well. Whether it's not just about the interfaces, but some of the virtualized stuff that people want to do. The general purpose processors aren't. You talk to experts, I believe that they're not performance-wise anywhere near as good as the customized kit you get from Huawei. There's questions about the radios that even the Open RAN guys themselves have raised. Parallel Wireless has been on about this for a while, which is quite a brave thing to do as an Open RAN company, to say, look, the radios need to be better to compete with Huawei. So there's all sorts of questions, but I do think it's something that's going somewhere, because I just think there's a massive demand for it.
Well, I think, and that demand has definitely received an extra boost by the American state.
That's for the wrong reasons, but
maybe, but it's nonetheless there, and the people involved will be aware of that.
That's the big risk with politicising it, is that you're putting the cart before the horse, and all of a sudden, because you're politicising it and because you're throwing so much money at the ecosystem, it sounds a lot more ready than it actually is. I'd bet you if you spoke to most people in the telecoms industry, they wouldn't have a clue about these TIP and ORAN interoperable plug tests that were supposed to be happening this year. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know until I spoke to Gabe, and I didn't know about these. And my assumption is that all of these companies were living up to the ORAN specifications, but it hasn't been validated.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the problem with the politicising the situation, is that the movement gathers so much momentum, and then all of a sudden you realise, well, actually, guys, why don't we go back to the basics and understand, is there interoperability? Is it market resilient? Is it at a commercial level where you can achieve ROI? And at the moment, I'm not seeing these boxes ticked. So it's not a viable alternative. So as much as Open RAN is being hyped, and as much as the potential looks really, really attractive, you got to say, right, guys, this is an embryonic ecosystem. It's not going to replace Huawei. It's not going to replace ZTE. It's not going to compete with Ericsson and Nokia.
No,
you just got to be realistic.
And it tallies with the forecasts that you see from people who track this stuff are pretty realistic about this. So Del Oro, which is the guys that tend to do the who has what share of the market, they're saying ORAN at the moment is about 1% of the whole RAN market, and in a very optimistic scenario, if things really go well, they're saying it's approaching a double-digit percentage in the next 5 years. So it's not going to come along and change the world.
But that's still pretty significant.
Well, 10% is good in 5 years, but it's still a tenth of the market. You're still talking about 90%. I mean, at the moment, Ericsson, Nokia, and Huawei are 80% of the market, right?
Yeah.
So,
the issue is that 10% is split between so many different providers. It's not concentrated R&D, which accelerates that community. It's fragmented R&D.
Yeah.
So
All right, cool. I'm going to wrap that one up because we've only got about 10 minutes or so left.
Have we?
Yeah. It's we started about 3. It's 10 to 4. I mean, we can go over a little bit, but people got shit to do as well.
Go another beer.
No.
He's had to. He's going to have to go to the little boys' room in a minute. I think I'm going to power through. I think I've got 10 minutes more of holding on in there. Jamie, your phone. You were putting on Twitter that your phone was knackered, but it seems all right.
Oh yeah, no, it's okay.
Okay.
It was
what
one
brand
of
is that, Jamie?
Sorry.
What brand is that?
Well, it's a Huawei, and to be honest, I've not been shy about this. I've had a Huawei for years, and it's not the first time.
No, they're not good
phones.
phones.
How do we know?
It's a good phone.
How do we know Xi Jinping isn't listening to us right now on your Huawei phone?
Give a shit. He's on the other side of the world. I've never
I'm
been
sending up the paranoia.
and it's actually, in all fairness to them, right? I mean, you look at the damage that is done to this phone.
I'm gonna.
I know the bloke.
It's a very
And flip
very
it around as well.
resilient phone. Flip it round to the other side.
Flip it around. That's where it's really smashed up.
I mean, that has been dropped.
I know, but you won't buy a
numerous
case, will you? Why
times.
won't you buy a case?
Well, because it seems all right when you drop it now. So yeah, I can just
It'd be
carry
even
on.
better
He's
if you've got a
proven
case,
it
though,
by
won't it?
dropping it without a case. It
I've
doesn't
dropped
need a
it
case
so
in
many
that.
times. I
The
mean,
screen isn't that bad, actually.
the screen's okay. It's got
You
a
never
few-
wanted a case, though. That's the
The
problem.
back is completely shagged, but it's fine. It's
Now
fine.
you're thinking, there's no point in getting a case. I've knackered it.
Yeah.
But it's all right. I mean, yeah,
If you get a new phone, will you get a case?
it depends what it is. How resilient is the phone? I put it up on Twitter the other day.
I know, this is
and
why I
I had
brought
like
it up.
bloody what is it? Phil Kendall and
Yeah, he got involved.
and a few people sent me, and Ian Hood as well sent me like links to like rugged phones that you would take on engineering jobs. So I was like, oh yeah, thanks.
those ones that you could just sort of chuck around the.
Yeah, basically, you could drop it out with a third story.
But I don't understand your resistance to cases. I mean, no matter how rugged the phone is, unless you get one of those sort of like Panasonic ones that are used on building sites or something like that, it's going to be better
Caterpillar.
with a case on it. Yeah, Caterpillar.
But why? But I mean,
You've shown that you're incapable of holding onto it for more than 5 minutes without
yeah, but
lobbing it onto the floor.
do you buy bubble wrap for your car?
Oh, right.
Yeah, but you don't drop your car that much.
No, but you do crash it.
That's
Right, and what happens when you crash it? You cause damage to the car.
Well, you have
if
airbags.
If you crash the car,
What about airbags then?
but if you
Get an airbag for your phone.
if you crash the car and it doesn't do any damage, are you going to buy bubble wrap for it?
No, but you don't crash your car every
I
other
don't
day.
think
You
don't think
drop
that's
your phone every other day.
equivalent.
It's still working.
No,
it's still
yeah, that's-
working.
okay, that's
It's
not the
still
point.
So
working.
he's clearly not going to buy a case. Well, I've got a case for mine, and mine hasn't got cracks all over it, and it doesn't look like a tramp's had it.
What does your phone do that mine doesn't?
It is not cracked.
You might slice your finger.
Does that make
Okay.
any material impact on using the
I've
phone?
got one more. Thing is, we're chucking sort of absurd
This is the third
hypothetical
item
questions
now.
at each other. Yes, it is actually. Let's get in there. Would you buy? How much would you pay for that? Like on eBay or something, with all those cracks and dents and
I wouldn't
stuff
pay
in it?
like over £15.
I'd say it's redundant because I'm going to use this phone until it doesn't work. I'm not the sort
Yeah.
of person that replaces a phone after 2 years because I want a new one. I will use this. The last phone I had for about 4 years, and it barely fucking worked by the time I got rid of it.
No, I'm with you.
I will use it until it does not work
No,
at
I'm-
all.
I'm with you
and
on
the
this.
resale value is
Yeah, Pierre does
basically
that with his
nothing.
iPhone.
No,
so
I'm with you until unless it starts like flickering a
Yeah.
lot, then you're like, okay.
Until it absolutely stops working, I'm going to carry on using this phone.
We have an iPad
Same with
mini
this
that I
one.
cracked a year ago,
yeah.
and when it gets humid outside, it starts like flickering really bad.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. It's completely shattered. The whole screen is.
Yeah.
But this
As a
is
whole.
the first one I've had that has been a brand new phone, I'd say, ever.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
clearly phones aren't status symbols for you, and
No,
that reflects
not at all.
well on your ego.
I think you'd be a good candidate for a Google, 3A or 4A.
I'd be
or an
tempted by
iPhone
Pixel.
SE.
I would be tempted by Pixel.
I'm gonna-
a lot of people are
I'm going to have a
talking
look when the
about
5 comes out. That's for sure.
Yeah, it'll be
That's
expensive.
sort of-
though.
Yeah, but I'll just say I'll have a look. I'm not going to.
I think your next one will probably be a 5G one.
I'm not really that bothered by it.
I was. Do you know my first 4G phone? I didn't get till I started this job. I started this job in 2014. I think I probably got my first 4G phone in 2015. So that's 5 years after 4G was a thing that I finally got on board. Some telecoms hack I've turned out to be. To be fair, I wasn't a telecoms hack when I started this job. Says something about the hiring policies here. Anyway, well, let's quickly, as it's going to be one of the things that you flag up, let's do 5 minutes on SoftBank. So basically, SoftBank's run by this chap called, what's he called?
Masayoshi Son.
Masayoshi Son.
Can you say it again?
Masayoshi Son.
He's good. He's good at it. He does the German words as well. And he's one of these sort of global oligarch, sort of Elon Musk type of people.
Mad as a hatter as well.
Mad as a box of frogs. No offence, Pierre. But basically, SoftBank was, it's originally a Japanese telecoms group, but then a big, basically owned Sprint in the States, and one or two other things. Owned a piece of some, I think, I don't know, was it Yahoo?
Well, they're in a part of
Alibaba, there we go.
That was his most successful investment.
That's it, yeah.
To be honest with you, and then he's
sort of been
riding off the back of that for years.
That's it. But maybe on the back of that, he's thought, oh, I'm a bit good at this investment.
Well, he started SoftBank.
Yeah. So he's thought, okay. So he thought, I'm a bit good at this investment business. And I hand it over to Jamie. So he's created this vision fund. How's that going?
Yeah, well, the thing is, you've got to give him some credits because, like, SoftBank is Japan's biggest telco. He has invested in some really, really good businesses. And the vision fund did have some absurdly good investments and some bad ones.
Which is fine. You expect
which is fine. Yeah. Which is any venture capitalist will tell you that not every
even Sequoia
bet is a great one.
Yeah.
It's just COVID's just made his bad investments look really, really, really bad, and just staggered growth of his good investments. So you look at the companies that he has bought into, and some of them are like COVID has nosedived them.
Yeah.
Like WeWork.
Yeah, Uber.
A year ago,
all these sort of massive internet companies.
Yeah, a year ago.
Well,
rely on people
really
leaving the house.
Company, but
what?
WeWork's not really an internet company. But
okay.
But a year ago, they would have looked like very sound investments. And like COVID came along, and it's just it's unfortunate he didn't diversify his portfolio. Maybe he put too much money in the Vision Fund instead of doubling down in SoftBank, let's say. It looks a little short-sighted now, and the Vision Fund has been a nightmare over the last couple of months. I mean, they put out some financial notes about a month ago and maybe 6 weeks ago, where the Vision Fund had depreciated by 17 billion US dollars now. I mean, it was only 100 billion to start with 4 years ago, or 3 years ago.
That's not a great return. And he's got all these partners, all these sovereign wealth funds, and all these people.
It's got a funny way of looking at investments as well. There's a lot of sort of financial engineering that goes on there in terms of like he sort of ignores a lot of the metrics that investors normally would look at, and says you need to look at assess things as well. I mean, a lot of this stuff wasn't doing very well before COVID. Actually, Uber was.
Is he the one with the little dip where the unicorn flies over?
Yes. Uber was loss-making before.
WeWork as well.
And WeWork was in a disaster. WeWork needed a $9 billion bailout before. That was the worst investment, was WeWork. But also things like, the other things he's gone into haven't worked out very well. Like Sprint, for example, was a big investment that they made in the US.
Yeah.
And that business has... he was never able to turn that around, and then it ended up with this merger that's now suddenly been approved with T-Mobile, and then as a result of a lot of the financial problems Jamie's been talking about, it looks like they're going to end up with a very, very small share of that.
They've basically flogged a bunch of their stake in the combined company, haven't they?
Uber, I think I'll disagree with you, because yes, it is a loss-making company each quarter, but Uber is one of those organisations where I know that it's going to be a long time till we actually get there, but like as soon as autonomous vehicles come along, like Uber has the market share, which it will make so much money. It is just ridiculous. It is like as soon as you take out the human capital part of Uber, it threatens to be one of the most profitable.
Come along quickly.
What are you talking about? Things like Uber Eats and that sort of thing?
No, I'm talking about their driving operations.
They are. They are
autonomous.
They are the big
Right,
company,
okay.
and they've been hugely disruptive, no doubt about it,
yeah.
on taxi business.
Because until they get to autonomous, I mean, they've got lots of problems with the vehicles that have got drivers in, with things like how they pay them and liability.
Yeah.
I think
But that's
most
what
of
I
the
said. As soon
problems
as you take
lie,
the human
yeah.
capital,
If you get to
part
full
out of it.
autonomous,
Yeah. So that is a long-term bet, and I think if you can manage and go through the loss-making years, that is, I think, a good bet. WeWork, really bad.
So
bet.
what was wrong with that? That's like a sort of rented office.
It's
thing.
a real estate company, property rental.
And
It was just badly managed, as far as I can gather.
just
By
dropped
that
the ball.
guy.
Really expensive.
The guy who runs it was, what's his name, with the sort of long hair and
Israeli
Can't
guy,
remember.
He
his
left.
name now. Anyway,
But per square footage, it's ridiculously expensive.
very odd investment
Really
for them
compared
to
to what's
make.
that other one that we get in the
though?
UK for sort of renter office? Because with our
I mean,
Regis.
whatever
Is
it's
that
it?
called.
Yeah, but
it
WeWork
was
is
just a
here
weird
too.
investment
Okay.
for SoftBank, though, because
Right.
it wasn't really. I mean, his whole thing is AI,
Technology
companies. It
so it wasn't a
really
big
a
company.
tech
That's why I made that
company,
mistake
so,
about generalising about internet companies. I sort of assumed WeWork must have a.
And Arm's had problems as well since he took over. He's not really, he's not. Arm's
So he's
obviously
flogging
a
bits of
critical
Arm now as
company.
well.
Well, Arm's now. I mean, I didn't cover
The
this.
IoT
It
bit,
was
isn't it,
written
right?
about on Light Reading. And by one of our freelancers that I manage, and I can't remember the story because it's been such a hectic week.
well,
So
Jamie
Jamie's going to have
catches
to
me
talk
out.
about that.
Jamie
But-
catches me out on
but
his stories.
there was a
sometimes.
move by
I
Arm to
haven't read 'em
spin off
properly.
the IoT stuff back into SoftBank, which was the whole reason for SoftBank going into it in the first place, was to try and establish Arm as a kind of major IoT player, rather than doing what it had done up to that point, which was stuff for Qualcomm and broadcast, for mobile phones, basically. So even Arm hasn't been very successful. I mean, look, I sympathise with him. People misunderstood Jesus as well, and and they just need to give him time, and then they'll realise that he's the Messiah, and the unicorns will fly out of the valley, and everything will be wonderful. Yeah. But until that point comes, he's looking like a bit of a dick.
And the global economy, I've been having a little look at sort of stock markets since it happened, because I find it interesting. When you get a massive dip, it's interesting how it recovers. And I think that there was a bit of an instant recovery for a couple of months, but that's sort of gone down again. And now it's kind of levelling out at a sort of recovery. Yeah. But now we're getting places like Australia are locking down cities again, and everyone expected a kind of second wave of this. And then we're getting...
the business that he's in really should be... those are the funds that we should be depending on to pick the winners. Surely, if they can't make money in this situation, then who can? There are people doing.
Yeah, but
well
they were picking winners before coronavirus,
and they weren't doing very well before coronavirus. Some of them, and coronavirus has made their problems worse. Masayoshi Son. I'm not, that one of the problems with the way the Vision Fund is administered is that he has too much control, and he's too much of a sort of.
That was what I was wondering about.
He's too much of a big ego.
If you're a SoftBank shareholder. And you're like, okay, I've invested in this company because they've got good fundamentals.
Yeah, and it's all Masayoshi
Son,
Son
of the
saying what
Japanese
happens.
market,
Yeah.
and then he just goes off and goes, "Oh, I'm going to invest in spaceships." And you're like, "Oh, hold on a sec, that's not what I bought."
And there's lots of questions about the governance structure and how much authority he has, and the fact that he seems to be the person calling the shots over the investments that they make. That's a question that's been raised in a lot of media outlets, and I can see that's a problem. And his ability to make good decisions seems to be based a lot on what he did years ago, which was to take a stake in Alibaba and also SoftBank itself. And no denying that those are massively successful things, but recently his track record doesn't look very good, and it didn't look that great before. Didn't look that great before COVID, even in a lot of cases. So
I think a hell of a lot of these oligarch types. I mean, there's some people like Jeff Bezos. It's hard to argue with him because it's always been Amazon. He's built it. It's been his thing.
Yeah,
and
he's not gone
Amazon.
off and spun off. He's bought things, obviously.
And then he's done AWS, which actually accounts for a hell of a lot more of their profits than the actual main Amazon bit.
Yeah, less revenue but more profit.
Yeah. And so that's fair enough. You could argue someone like Elon Musk, if they repeat it. So Elon Musk was eBay first, and now he's doing the cars and the spaceships.
No.
PayPal.
Well,
PayPal's eBay.
It was him.
It's not.
eBay bought it.
No. Yes,
it was originally him and your man.
He created.
Who owns PayPal?
He was one of about 7 people that were the sort of like the original people.
They acquired
his
company.
He gets accredited with a lot more
That
than
he did.
should.
Right.
No, he had a company called X
PayPal,
something.
yeah,
They had a
PayPal
technology,
existed
and then
and
PayPal bought them.
Oh, okay.
Musk's
Fair enough. Fair
company.
enough. Peter Thiel, that's the other guy. I was
Peter
thinking.
Thiel. And he made like,
So Teal was probably more significant.
Maybe.
In
So
that
anyway, I
setup
mean,
than that was.
I might be slightly contradicting myself, but I mean, there are certain people that you put on a pedestal as these business visionaries, and you sort of think, fair enough. Steve Jobs, I think, is another good one.
Yeah.
Tedious person though he clearly was, you can't argue with.
He was a marketeer, really, I think.
Yeah, but his track record of Apple, and then going off
Yeah.
and doing sort of Pixar and stuff, and then coming back to Apple and picking it up off the floor, all that sort of thing. But you get impression some of them have just sort of struck it a bit lucky, like maybe Son with Alibaba, and they're kind of dining out on that reputation a bit.
I'm not entirely convinced by that, because he has been the CEO of SoftBank for
I'm not saying he
a
totally
very
fluked
low
it.
time. Yeah, I'm not entirely. And to be perfectly honest, if you actually look at the Vision Funds up until this point, if you take
Checking along.
COVID out of the equation, it was up.
Can you think of any big pluses in the portfolio off the top of your head?
Arm?
But as an acquisition,
Arm has grown. Yeah.
Isn't
Okay.
Arm-
Well, what is supposed to be
No,
a
I
private
think-
equity fund? I
Arm
mean,
is
they
going
buy
to do
things.
all of the
suppose so.
Apple laptops.
No. I mean, there's a lot of things.
Arm.
yeah.
Arm's
They're
like
switching
the
to Arm.
main.
Apple's switching to Arm, yeah.
Yeah,
All the
that's a big
designs go,
contract
yeah.
right there.
If you actually have a look at what COVID did to the Vision Fund, it just made bad investments look really, really, really bad, and it made good investments look average. So you haven't got everything is just moving that
Fair
direction
enough.
as opposed to stretching to counter each other out, which is what usually happens in a private equity or venture capitalist. Like a venture capitalist will not make the right bet every single time.
Yeah.
But a good venture capitalist makes more good bets than bad bets.
Yeah.
Like you like to say, throw shit at the wall.
Yeah,
So it sticks.
exactly.
And they cut their losses from the bad bets nice and quickly, and they capitalise on their good bits well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only problem.
A lot
is
of it's
that
a probability.
WeWork
It's
was
just a
a
fucking game of
really,
poker,
really,
isn't it?
really bad bet, and they went in really, really hard and really heavy in WeWork, and that was, I mean, I don't understand why they thought that was a good bet. I really, really don't understand. They bet on the mobility trend before COVID came in, and WeWork was a badly managed business, so that just went downhill, and then COVID came in and it went even further downhill.
Okay.
But mobility, in all fairness, these sort of like WeWork offices, in a time in, let's say, 2 to 3 years, into the future, where like we're sat in the Informer office, this will become less common.
Yeah.
WeWork will look very attractive to remote workers and to small companies.
Yeah, it's true.
I think.
But then
in
again, the
future,
total demand for things like WeWork and Regus and just office space full stop. I mean, we won't get into it now because we've done a full hour. But I don't think anyone's denying that having had this home working forced on us, there's going to be a permanent shift in how everyone works, and a lot less people have been coming to the office every day.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier at the pub, actually, Jamie and I, and saying that we don't, offices are going to be
you
smaller,
mean
clearly.
at
but
Pratt?
At Pret, yeah. At
No,
Pret,
Pret.
we were talking about this when we were getting our sandwiches before we came in, and saying that we don't think it's going to be this whole doomsday scenario of people never coming into an office again. I think because there's always a desire for people
Yeah,
to...
and as we were just reflecting with this pod.
Yeah.
You
Like
gotta
we're
meet
in
up.
here now. Why are we in here now? Because we wanted to hook up, yeah?
Definitely.
And we're middle-aged guys apart from Jamie.
We wanna hook up in
so-
a platonic
well,
sense, I
actually,
hasten to
it's
add.
just us two that are middle-aged, but yeah.
Yeah.
So young people want to go out and
Yeah.
hang out, don't
So
they?
you think the Japanese guy is going to be okay? He's not going to have to move into a 2-bedroom house.
I think he's going to have
Hold
some
in
money to
Tokyo.
spend.
He'll
And
have-
once people realise that he's actually the Messiah, things are going to be great.
All right. Okay. Let's call it a day there. Not least because appropriate for my Guns N' Roses t-shirt, I need a slash. So, hello. I'm here all week trying to veal. So that was great. That was good fun. So we'll keep coming back in as long as they don't lock down London again. Great to see you guys. And I hope you enjoyed the first live one for 3 months. And make sure you join us for the next one.